you fall, watch you lose in control. I'm seeing red. Watch you rise, watch you fall. Now I'm about to break. Face the pain, no escape. Can you step to this? Face the pain, no escape. Can you step to this? Face the pain. Face the pain, no escape. Can you step to this?
What's going on, fight fans? Welcome to another episode of the Fixed Fights podcast with Kurt and Ben. As always, I'm Kurt. I'm here with my main man, Ben. What's going on this week, dude?
Not a lot, or I should say not a lot in my life, but a lot going on in MMA, man. We were talking about before we hit record that there's like stories all over the place, stories inside the cage, fights announced, lots of good fighting to recap, lots of good fighting happening this weekend, not to mention all the fucking jiu-jitsu that just happened, boxing matches. There's a lot going on.
Honestly, there's a lot going on. This past weekend was one of the best combat sports weekends in a while, right? You had UFC 266. You had the big boxing matchup, which we'll talk about in a little bit. You had who's number one jiu-jitsu, and then whatever else in between. But yeah, you're absolutely right. But let's start at the top. Let's start with UFC 266. What an awesome pay-per-view. And honestly, dude, that main event was, dude, it was literally everything you could have asked for in a big, just like a big fight feel, right? Like title on the line, two guys in their prime, and they both delivered. Alexander Volkanovsky defeats Brian Ortega via decision, which I have absolutely no idea how. I don't know how Brian Ortega made it to that final bell. I think, Herb Dean might have given him a little help, which we'll talk about in a second. But, dude, I think Volkanovsky has asserted himself as one of the pound-for-pound best fighters in the game. He kind of had this label of like I don't want to say a points fighter, but kind of like I would say a safe and calculated fighter. And man, he threw that all out he threw that out the window in this fight. He went for the finish literally the whole fight. I can't say enough about him, dude. I said this before, like I kind of became a bigger fan of Volkanovsky like through The Ultimate Fighter and getting to see a bit of his personality. And then this fight, dude, I'm completely sold, man. This guy is he's fucking awesome. The fight was awesome. Props to Ortega for surviving that. But yeah, dude, I can't gush enough about this fight.
Yeah, and I feel like Volkanovsky is only getting better. And you bring up the point, right? He has this reputation he had, I should say, this reputation of kind of being a point fighter. And I think that's just because he was fighting Max Holloway 2 times in a row. And before that, Aldo. Like, if you look back at his fight against Chad Mendes, absolute bananas dogfight. That's worth, what is that? Like a 7-minute fight, something like that.
Yep.
You really want to get hyped on Alexander Volkanovsky, see him against somebody like Chad Mendes. He came into the UFC, I think, as a decent, like a very, very good athlete, a decent striker, and like a really, really good ground and pound artist. And I remember even talking about him early in his UFC career and being like, this guy just looks like a physical monster on the mat. And then now he's like really rounded it out. And I loved that we got to see some of that like how good Volkanovski's ground game and ground and pound is. Obviously he got the drama is that he got put in these like really, really bad submissions only to escape and then just like beat the ever loving piss out of Brian Ortega on the mat. But I'm glad we got to see like, it's a little bit harder to see what makes Volkanovski good on the feet because he doesn't it's not like, he has power for sure, but it's not like he's just this monstrous puncher. He's not like Max Holloway where he just pours on like volume after volume after volume. But he kind of does everything right. He moves a ton. I think Brian Ortega, and I talked about this a little bit, like I think Brian Ortega is a little too flat-footed. That's his style, right? He's not going to maybe change that, but Volkanovski really took advantage of that and was just constantly moving, setting up combinations, countering. That said, like I said, it's a little bit hard to see what makes Volkanovski so good on the feet, but the fact that he survived those submissions and then came out and just unleashed all hell on the ground, I think makes me excited for Volkanovski in the future, especially if he fights a guy that he can like for sure take down. right? If he's matched against somebody who doesn't have phenomenal takedown defense, I think Volkanovski beats the piss out of that person.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to, I guess, probably root for Yair Rodriguez to beat Max
buddy.
Holloway, but we'll talk about that in a sec, man.
Yeah.
I pretty much agree with everything you said, dude. That third round of this fight might be one of the best rounds in title fight history. It's got to be the round of the year so far. I mean, this fight is probably up there for fight of the year, but dude, that round is insane. Ortega hits Volkan. I don't know if it was like a slip or he actually dropped him, but the way Ortega, who's already, by the way, seemed to be tiring, kind of hurt, the way he slaps on that mounted guillotine. And dude, you can see Volkanovski's head turning purple. I was watching with a couple of buddies. I'm like, dude, this fight's over. I cannot believe it. Like, he had that thing sunk, hips in, cranked. Somehow Volkanovski gets out. And then instead of backing out, getting back to the feet, he goes to Brian Ortega's guard and absolutely fucking unleashes hell. And then gets caught in a fucking triangle. And you're like, oh God, T-City, holy shit, it's over. He gets out and then pounds the shit out of him again. I mean, that round is absolutely wild. And then on the flip side, dude, I got to give it back to Ortega. Like, what was it? Was it after that round when he's literally laying on the mat and they have to like, dude? And then like, I mean, say what you want. It seemed like he wasn't. Volkanovski even said it seemed like he wasn't answering the questions right. Dean's like, can you see? And he's like, yeah, I think so. You know, I have no idea. But Brian Ortega comes back and arguably wins the 5th round, which is another crazy round. I don't know if Volkanovski kind of let off the gas or what, but I mean, dude, props to these guys in that fight. The fight was fucking amazing.
Yeah, Brian Ortega quietly becoming like one of the most exciting fighters on the roster, I think. I know he put in kind of a measured performance against Korean Zombie, but if you remember in that fight, he landed a fucking spinning elbow that nearly ended the fight. Like, that third round is exactly why this fight was going to be exciting, is because Ortega has that ability, right? Even watching it live, or I watched it on replay, but like, you know, those first couple rounds, Ortega's getting beat on the feet. You know he's not out of it, right? Because he has all these like third round finishes, and then lo and behold, the third round comes.
So close.
Volkanovski gives him his neck for just like that. I think that moment where Ortega jumped onto the guillotine was like one of the most dramatic moments like of MMA of this year, because he put it on so fast.
Yeah.
And it was you also bring it up, like, Ortega didn't even just look like he was like he looked pretty fucking dead already in that third round. And I think it's a credit to like his training, right? He was on autopilot just doing jujitsu, and his jujitsu was still like incredible. So man, I know Ortega's probably not going to be around, maybe not going to be around a title shot for a minute now that he's 0-2 in title shots, but dude, I like to see him fight for a long time in the UFC. I think Ortega is really, really fun to watch. I know he didn't come off necessarily great on the show that I did not watch, but I liked what he said on the mic afterward. You know, I'm a Brian Ortega fan for sure, and that's not to take anything away from Volkanovski, who put in like a true championship performance.
Dude, yeah, absolutely wild. You know, it's tough for Brian Ortega, because if you look at his 2 title fights, like, he's taken 2 of the most historic beatings, you know, in title fights, and it's crazy because, you know, he didn't have many moments in the Max Holloway fight, but this fight, dude, I mean, he was literally a hair away from becoming the featherweight champion of the world. I mean, hey man, that's, I guess, what Volkanovski gets for rolling with Craig Jones all the time, I'm sure. But man, that fight was awesome. The fight really freaking delivered. I guess, so who's next for Volkanovski? I think it's got to be pretty obvious, right? They rebooked the Max Holloway Yair Rodriguez fight. It's got to be the winner of that fight. And again, like, I really want to see the fight. I said it before when it fell through. I want to see it. I heavily favor Max Holloway, but I don't think there's anybody else.
Yeah, I mean, I think Korean Zombies coming off a loss to Ortega. Who did Cater lost recently, right, to Holloway?
He got destroyed by Max.
Yeah, I mean, you got to go down. Like Arnold Allen needs another win. There is some contenders. Giga Chikadze, I'm sure, is
They all
up
need
there, but
wins, man.
they all need wins. And dude,
And if Max beats Yair, that's the biggest win of them all. Above Arnold Allen and
yeah,
they did.
yeah.
I did see Mark Henry made a post that Zabit is coming back. Now I don't know who he's going to fight, but even Zabit, like Zabit hasn't fought in 9 years. Like who's you know what I'm saying? I don't know who
Yeah.
he's gonna fight. And even if he wins, he's not jumping Max Holloway.
And what I was gonna say is like even Zabit at his best, I would pick Volkanovski that we
Yeah,
just
100%.
for sure. And it's kind of crazy. I mean, Volkanovski almost lost this fight for sure twice. He was like just a breath away of probably being put to sleep, but he didn't really take a huge beating himself. Like Volkanovski doesn't have a ton of miles on him, I feel
No,
like. I don't know if he has that one loss. I can't remember if
I
he
think
was ever
there was a TKO back in what 2000
2013 in his fourth pro fight.
20 fights ago. That's crazy.
But like even the Holloway fights, he didn't take a ton of damage. I know he was like briefly wobbled, but he's looking like a guy that could defend this title 2, 3, 4 more times, which is crazy in featherweight, especially because Volkanovski kind of came out of nowhere, right? We had talked about him as a real threat, but I don't think anybody thought he would be beating Max Holloway twice, beating Brian Ortega like 2 years ago. He was not on people's radar the way he is now as like a pound for pound great.
Yeah, I mean his resume is insane. He's got Jose Aldo, Max Holloway, who were arguably the best two featherweights ever. Now he's got Brian Ortega. He's got Chad Mendes under Darren Elkins. I mean, the guy's quietly, like you said, put together an impressive resume. And this one, he just kicked down the door, right? I mean, this fight was insane. It's kind of tough for him, right? Because it's like he's fighting a guy in Max Holloway that's one of the biggest fan favorites out there, right? And say what you want, but he's got 2 wins over him. And he even made a good point. It's like, what do I have to fight Max Holloway until I lose? You know what I'm saying? But it's a thing where these two guys, I think, are so far ahead of the rest of the division. It's like, I think all roads at this point are going to lead to these two guys fighting each other, you know?
Yeah, I mean, not to like try to see into the future too much, but those guys that I also named, Yair Rodriguez, Giga Chikadze, very exciting fighters, but dude, Volkanovski takes them down and finishes them on the mat.
Yeah.
Like I am so confident in that, unless Yair Rodriguez does something crazy that surprises me. But like, yeah, it's hard. I mean, you got to look down at kind of the guys that are way more on the come up to challenge Volkanovski seriously, I think, outside of Max Holloway.
Yeah. And again, I'm really pumped for the Yair Rodriguez Max Holloway fight. I do think Max is going to tear through him. And dude, we've seen it twice already, but if it lines up where it's Max Holloway and Alexander Volkanovski again, I am going to be, especially after this fight, I'm hyped to the moon for it. I can't freaking wait.
I mean, especially what if you're right and Max Holloway just puts a beating on Yair Rodriguez, like that could be a good lead in. If that's a close fight, maybe a little bit less excited about a trilogy against Volkanovski, but if Max goes out there and knocks out Yair Rodriguez or something, like, yeah, why not?
Yeah, I can't wait, man. If you're not on the Volkanovski train, jump the fuck on.
Yeah. What did he say before he was on his last fight? He was on a card with Colby Covington. What was it, like nerds and virgins are cool? Like
Yeah.
I love Volkanovski.
He says some funny shit.
Yeah.
All right, co-main event. There's not a lot to say about it besides Valentina Shevchenko is an absolute machine. Gets Lauren Murphy out of there in the 4th round. I mean, this fight was never close. We didn't think it was going to be close. The odds were insane. It was like Lauren Murphy was like a plus like 1450, plus 1600 underdog for a good reason. Tough girl, but dude, Valentina is an absolute machine. There's nobody for Valentina at 125. And if Amanda Nunez gets through Juliana Pena, there's nobody else for Amanda Nunez. These two have to fight. I think Valentina is at the point where she's calling for it. I don't know if Amanda's going to take that fight. She's already got 2 wins over her, kind of like the Volkanovski Holloway situation. But for my money, there's nobody at 125 anytime soon that is going to challenge Valentina Shevchenko.
Yeah, like you bring up the point. Not anytime soon. I still think I've been saying it. women's flyweight is in a couple years, maybe
It's
even
on the
just
come
like a
up.
year and a half. It's on the come up. Miranda Maverick, Erin Blanchfield. There are some even Macy Barber could still get a lot better. Alexa Grasso could get better and bigger for that weight class. But yeah, I think like you got to do Nunez Shevchenko, especially because they are number 1 and 2 pound for pound in the UFC. And like, how often is that on the table? Like, if we look at the men's pound for pound UFC rankings, right? It's Kamaru Usman at 170, John Jones at number 2. Like, those fights can't theoretically happen because they're so far apart in weight. Whereas here you have the 1 and 2 clear best pound for pound female fighters in your organization. Like, why not do it again? Because I'm not going to be excited to continue to see Valentina Shevchenko fight the Lauren Murphys of the world. Not to shit on Lauren Murphy here because she was so physically outmatched and technically outmatched, but like, what the fuck was her game plan? Just to slowly get beat up? Like, I don't know what she wanted, what she intended to do here. And again, like, it's hard. She's way slower, probably hits just like she's outmatched by Shevchenko, but did she not know that going in? Like, I could not tell what she intended to do in this fight.
It's like you can't even take Shevchenko down. She's
Right.
so good on the ground. You know, she's one of the most well-rounded fighters in the sport, regardless of gender.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, Amanda Nunes' career is definitely coming to an end, right? I mean, she's cleared out pretty much 2 divisions. She's got the new life. She's got the baby. I can't see her sticking around too long. She's got 2 wins over Valentina. I don't know if she's going to take that. I mean, what's the incentive for taking it? Like, yeah, we all want to see it, but for Amanda Nunes, I mean, Valentina Shevchenko is, I would say, far better than that second fight.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Amanda Nunes is necessarily on, you know what I'm saying? I don't know if Nunes is on the decline yet, but she might be on the decline or closer to the decline than Valentina, because Valentina looks like she's just getting better and better and better. So I don't really know what the incentive for Amanda is. I don't know if we're ever going to see the fight, but God damn it, we need to.
Yeah, the problem is that neither of them are like big money fighters. So the hardcore fans, we want to see that. But you bring up the point, like, what incentive does Nunez have to take this fight? And as much as we want to see that fight, that's not a fight that the UFC is probably going to pay Nunez a ton to take, just because, like, that's the truth. Like, for whatever reason, Amanda Nunez is not a huge star, and for whatever reason, Valentina Shevchenko is not a huge star. So, you know, like, yeah, Nunez is 2-0 against her. She's probably going to say, you got to pay me a lot to take a third fight against her. And the UFC is probably going to be like, well, we're not going to pay you very much then, because like, this is not a huge fight for the larger kind of MMA audience. Also 100% agree with you that I feel like Shevchenko has improved so much since their second fight, especially on the ground. I used to kind of shit on her ground game and say, oh, she's just like basically a strong blue belt. I'm wrong about that now. Like, she can wrestle, she can defend takedowns, she can ground strike, she can submit, she can pass the guard. And I think remembering their second fight, a lot of that hinged on like a late Nunez takedown. I don't think that's happening in their second fight. I think Nunez would really struggle to get Shevchenko on the mat. But alas, it might never happen. It might not happen in the UFC. Yeah. So we'll see.
I mean, you can build that fight as arguably the biggest women's fight in history. If you build that right, I think you could get the casual fans on board, especially if you put a solid co-main event, you know, with it, or even, you know, maybe a bigger title fight on top of it. I think you could really sell that fight. But again, you got to get. I think the trick is going to be getting Amanda Nunes to sign on for it, and I don't know if she's going to.
I mean, yeah, and I don't know if Nunez, to your point about like maybe Nunez is declining, maybe she's not. She at least seems to have like lost a little bit of hunger.
Yeah.
Not to like get into her head too much, but I still like love to watch her fight. I think she's super entertaining and intense, but I feel like a little bit of like, now she is like, I'm clearly the best in the world. I beat Chris Cyborg, you know, I beat Ronda Rousey, I've beat Shevchenko twice. She kind of fights like she doesn't have anything to prove anymore, because she doesn't. But that can also be a double-edged sword, right? Like, she is the greatest, but she doesn't have anything else to prove. So maybe some of that hunger could be waning.
Yeah, we'll see. People's main event. This was a tough one for me, man. My heart was thumping for this one. I was It was tough for me to watch. Robbie Lawler beats Nick Diaz in the third round of a fight that honestly was pretty fucking insane. These guys, Nick Diaz 38 years old, Robbie Lawler 39 years old. I mean, the output those guys had was fucking insane. And when Nick came out and he threw that kick, and then like the first little exchange when he like went to the corner and covered up, I was like, dude, this is bad. Like Nick's gonna get fucking destroyed. But he came back and he looked good. Like his combos looked good. Like he looked a little slower than he usually does. But I mean, dude, he there was, I think it was like the second round or something. He threw like 170 punches or something insane, and he was landing on Robbie. He was beating up Robbie, and we'll get to Robbie in a second because Robbie is not getting the credit that he deserves for obvious reasons. It's a Diaz brother, right? It's a story with the Diaz brothers, but the thing that got me with Nick was him clearly not being in shape. The characteristics of the Diaz brothers, right? They're always in incredible shape. They have incredible cardio, and they just don't quit. And for Nick to come in there looking clearly out of shape, the thing with the head, like I'm not going to get into the psychology of his head, right? Nick is always saying things like he doesn't like to fight, and he's always a little bit weird on fight week and no showing stuff. So that wasn't that alarming to me. But the fact that he was out of shape, on top of all that, it was alarming. People are saying DC's on matchmaking for Nick Diaz, and everyone's who. Let's not matchmake for Nick Diaz. If Nick Diaz is in this condition, listen, as a huge fan of the Diaz brothers, I was happy I got to see him fight again. That was a moment I never thought I would see again. And I thought he looked good for moments of the fight, but I don't need to see him fight again, especially in that condition. Like he came back, he looked good. It was a feel good moment. Um, yeah, if he's in that condition, I don't want to see him fight again because he just clearly wasn't there. And again, like it was fight or flight for him, right? And he fought valiantly for 3 rounds. I thought he did pretty damn well, but yeah, I don't need to see him fight again. I don't know if you have a different view on it all, but yeah.
No, I mean, I'm gonna see if I can't come up with a different view. But basically, you kind of summed up how I feel about it. Is if we look at just the in cage action, like the fight itself, I mean, he
Yeah.
looked like he was 39. He looked like he didn't really show up in shape for a UFC fight. Only one of those guys did, which is fine. But still, the fight itself was like in many ways kind of a classic Nick D. I mean,
Yeah.
he lost, but in many ways, like you said, like those opening moments where you're thinking, and again, I watched it not live. I went into it knowing the results. Oh, it's a weird fight, but like even then, the opening minute, I was like, oh shit, this looks awful. Same
Yeah.
exact
Yep.
response as you. And then that he had a one like in the first round, and the second round is when I feel like Nick kind of really turned it on, and that was his moment to shine. But even just like in the first round, I think Nick had one flurry coming back, and the crowd just erupted. I'm sure you, as a Diaz fan, like lost your shit watching
Yeah,
that.
dude.
It's like, oh, it's happening. He's doing the classic Nick Diaz thing, where he defends on the cage and then just like pieces you up when you have to take a breath. So in cage action, like I enjoyed the fight, and I'm never gonna shit on Nick Diaz for knowing when he was
No.
beat. Right?
Yeah,
Him,
I have no problem with him saying no mas. I
that's
have
a
no
guy
problem.
he's a veteran and knows I'm not gonna win this fight, and like he's proven enough that he's okay. Like I'm okay with him doing that. I think the fight was entertaining, and like you said, we'll get to Robbie Lawler, who turned in a hell of a fucking performance. But yeah, the outside of the cage stuff, he always says, I don't like fighting, so that's not alarming to me. But he looked like something that we've always loved about Nick Diaz is the double fingers, the mean mug, the scowling,
It wasn't
the
there.
where you at, George? Where you at, motherfucker? Like obviously he's not going to say that, but like he just looked like the old Nick Diaz looked like a guy who was angry and was just needed to be angry to fight. And that guy here, he turned in a good performance considering the shape he came in, but I wanted to see Nick Diaz scowling. I wanted to see him fucking angry. I wanted to see him talking shit at the face-offs, whatever it may be. That just wasn't
It
here.
wasn't there.
And
No.
for that reason, regardless of the fight itself, I'm with you. Is like I am not excited to see him fight again because he's a huge part of what makes him exciting is one, the way he fights, but two, like the way he approaches it, his mentality. And that just wasn't there. It didn't get me super excited. So yeah,
It was like, dude, he
I'm
was like, I don't mean to cut you off, but
no,
it was almost like he was like sleepwalking through
right.
like the pre-fight all the way through the fight, like he looked disinterested, right? Like he's always said like I don't like fighting. But like you said, when it's fight time, that motherfucker is on. He's in your face, he's nasty. This time he just looked disinterested. Like he didn't look like he said he didn't want to be there necessarily, and it really looked like he did not want to be there. And he wasn't in shape. But yeah, I agree with you, man. The in-cage stuff, there was a lot to like there, but I don't need to see him fight again, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean that's on his end, like, and he didn't, all the weird shit afterward, like I don't know who set up this fight, yada yada yada. Like
That was the only time he got mad the whole time when he was like,
yeah,
I could kick
yeah.
Kamaru Usman's ass. I don't know who set up this fight. That was the one time he actually got upset. Other than that, he was just fucking, yeah, he was just kind of floating.
But all things considered, I'm pretty happy with how
Yeah.
everything that went down. Like I don't think like you and I were excited to see him fight for sure, but I don't think we were super invested in the outcome as long as he didn't look awful and it wasn't super sad.
Well, that was the best thing. Like if like I was saying in the beginning when he threw that kick and then he shelled up, if he just shelled up and got smoked, I think our outlook would be 100% different right now.
Right. But he had those moments. He had those moments where it's like, you know what? Maybe if he was in better shape, he could come back here.
Right.
But I'm fine with that send off, man. It was good to see Nick Diaz fight again.
It
Straight
was.
up.
It was cool. And Robbie, to his credit, Robbie came in shape. Robbie was ready to make 170 pounds. Robbie made 185 pounds. He weathered the storm, dude. Robbie's body shots, I think, are what won him the fight. There was a couple times in that fight where he threw. There was one distinct body kick could remember that seemed like it hurt Diaz, and he was just putting in just nice combos to the body. And I think that's what really took the win out of Nick's sales. Again, win over 2021 Nick Diaz isn't going to get you. I don't know what's going to do for Robbie Lawler, but at least stop the bleeding. Robbie had lost 4 fights in a row before then. Now he's got a big win in a rematch 17 years later that he looked really damn good in. Again, he's 39 years old, but shit, I think Robbie proved that he can fight again. I think he could be in fun fights. I don't think he needs to sniff anywhere near those guys in the top 15. Just keep putting him in with fun fights. Like a fucking Matt Brown rematch or something like that would be crazy.
Yeah, anything like that. He is, and you said it at the top, is like Robbie Lawler's not getting enough credit
No,
because
he's not.
in his late 30s, showing up in the shape he did and still being fucking fearless. Like he got hurt for sure by Diaz
Oh,
and
100%.
stayed in his face. Robbie Lawler is like an all-time OG savage, and he showed
Yeah.
that. A big part of why we're kind of singing the praises of this fight is because Nick had the perfect dance partner. Robbie didn't
Yes.
try to take him down.
Yes.
Robbie didn't cower when Nick threw back. Robbie stayed in the pocket and threw back, and yeah, he doesn't have kind of the cult of personality that Diaz does, but in terms of the way Robbie fights, I think he deserves credit for like being an all-time action fighter and just somebody that
Both of
is
these
going
guys.
to bring it. Both of them, yeah. So
Two of the all-time action fighters. Yeah, that's perfect. Yep.
so yeah, I was super happy with Lawler, and yeah, I think he deserves a ton of credit for coming in the shape he was, because he very clearly could have kind of showed up out of shape too. And the moment that Diaz asked for 185 instead of 170, Lawler could have been like, oh fuck it, I'm just gonna like eat a bunch of fucking cake or
Yeah,
something. But
right.
he looked in great shape, and I loved the way he approached the fight.
Yeah. Yeah, closing the bet on that, man. It was good. I'm not glad that Nick lost, but I'm glad that the fight was entertaining while it lasted. I'll say that.
For sure. Yeah.
Running down the rest of this card, Curtis Blades gets a win over Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Not the most impressive performance, although I didn't agree with the fans necessarily booing that fight. Listen, if you look at the card prior to this fight, the card was fucking awesome. That was like the first maybe slow fight. Like, calm down, guys. One thing for Curtis though that I will say is he's in a weird point. He's already lost to Derek Lewis. He's lost twice to Ngannou. Um, and we'll talk later about this guy, but John Jones is still kind of hanging out there somewhere in the stratosphere. Curtis Blades at least didn't get done like he did by the other guys, right? He wasn't winning the fight and then got slept. So he stayed out of trouble, got a big win that he desperately needed. I don't know if you got anything else to say on Mr.
No, I mean,
Blades.
he's in a rough spot. He needs somebody different to hold a title belt
He needs Cyril
because
Gane to win.
yeah, that's basically the only thing that I would make me excited. And I feel like Curtis Blades has kind of plateaued a little bit. I thought he does have a ton of skills, and not to say he can't continue to get better because he is. Let me see how old he. I feel like he's still very young by
29,
heavyweights.
30 maybe?
He's 30,
Yeah.
so we
That's
know
a
how
baby in
heavyweight shakes
heavyweight
out.
years.
Exactly, that's a baby. And if you look, I mean, he only has those Derek Lewis and 2 Francis
That's
Ngannou
it.
losses. He could still do it, but for the time being, he's in limbo. He's spinning his wheels for sure.
Main card opener, Jessica Andrade. But dude, holy fuck. I think I picked Cynthia Calvillo in this fight. Goddamn, was I wrong? But Andrade, I mean, she just mowed through Cynthia Calvillo. She just did not stop moving forward and throwing punches. Dude, Andrade is a buzzsaw, man. I mean, yeah, she can't compete with Valentina, which we saw, but dude, against the rest of the pack, I mean, she's going to put herself in an awkward position because, I mean, Calvillo is a good, solid fighter, and Andrade just went through her like butter.
Yeah, that's Andrade against one of some up and coming flyweight is going to get me so hyped. Like, I think we could see Miranda Maverick fight Jessica Andrade in like 2 fights, and that's like kind of new wave against older wave and 2 like physical fucking specimens at 125. But yeah, Andrade is also there. Like, I would not be excited to see her fight Shevchenko again because I don't see how it goes any different.
Yeah, I don't think it does, but she is a freaking beast. Dude, one of the craziest fights on the card. Merab Dvalishvili somehow survives an insane first round. And kind of like Volkanovski, like he almost got finished multiple times in that first round and then ends up turning the tides at the end of the round and fucking putting it on Marlon Moraes. We've said that Marlon Moraes kind of has a shoddy gas tank, and it showed again in this fight. He kind of blew his wad trying to finish Merab. Somehow Merab kept his head, kept in there, and then went to fucking work. Ends up getting the finish in the second round. The guy's an animal. The guy's insane.
I gotta stop doubting Merab Dvalishvili. Like, I feel like, did I pick Moraes? I can't remember who I picked, but
I picked Moraes for sure.
He's Merab is a guy who for sure he has all these impressive wins in the UFC, but I've always been kind of like, is he actually like a top 5 guy? And for like, we know Marlon Moraes has his faults, and Merab took advantage of that here. We know Moraes kind of has a shoddy gas tank and starts fast and ends slow. Like, we know all that, but he was basically unconscious. And then like 90 seconds later, he had Marlon Moraes basically unconscious on the mat as well. So I got to stop doubting this guy. Impressive chin from him, impressive recoverability, impressive wrestling, obviously. Yeah, I need to throw some respect on Merab's name. And Moraes, like, we know who he is at this point. And I also don't think Moraes made a strategic mistake going for the kill in the first round, because he has to also know in the back of his head, if I don't get a finish here, it's probably just going to go downhill no matter what. So I better just sell out trying to get the finish. But yeah, all due respect to Merab. I mean, that's also a fight of the year contender, in my opinion. We had 2 on the same card.
Dude, it was insane. There was fucking comeback of the
Yeah,
it could be comeback of the year right now, right?
And that's also round 1. Was it round 1?
Round 1, yes.
Is also round of the year contender, up there with round 3 from Volkanovsky and Ortega. Like, 2 round of the year contenders on this card.
Dude, the guy's a stud, man. His chin is insane. His motor is insane. His wrestling is great. He's a big time player in this division for sure.
Yeah. We need to be talking about him against. I mean, I haven't read rankings lately. Let's see here.
Well,
he moves up to 6.
A lot of these guys are booked right now because, like, if you look at the division, let me pull it up really quick. So Aljo's hurt. they're going to do, and this kind of ties into a couple of the fights that we were talking about got announced. They announced Peter Yan against here's the one right here. Corey Sandhagen's going to fight Peter Yan for the interim title. Rob Font's going to fight Jose Aldo. Boom. TJ Dillashaw. TJ needs a big win. TJ's coming off the injury. I think that's the fight you got to do. Let the rest of it shake out. TJ versus Merab. Sign me the fuck up.
Yeah, I'm into it. I was impressed with TJ's comeback fight.
I was too, yeah.
Yeah, sign me all the way up, especially TJ now kind of a little bit more in the groove. There shouldn't be anything about ring rust here. I would love to see how the wrestling would play out between those guys because Merab might be able to out wrestle TJ, which I think
he
as
could. I think he
I
would
don't know.
have to because if it stayed on the feet,
Yeah.
TJ would pick him the fuck apart.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I don't think has anybody really been able to take down TJ Dillashaw.
I want to say like Dom Cruz took him down, but not for like
couple,
any like stretches.
exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Not any stretches of time. Yeah, I don't recall anyone really taking him down and grounding him too much.
Yeah, that's a great pick for that fight. I would love to see that.
That is. Sign it up. We're playing matchmaker.
Yeah.
Moving down in the card, Dan fucking Hooker, man. And honestly, credit to both these guys, Nasrat, Haxpress, Dan Hooker. I mean, these guys went through fucking hell to make the fight. If there was one fight where if a guy missed weight, it would be this fight where you're like, who cares, right? These guys both fucking made weight. I think both these guys made championship weight, which is crazy. Dan Hooker gets a big win, a win he needed. He flashed some impressive wrestling in this fight, which we didn't really know he had. But the big thing with Dan Hooker, he's accepted a fight in October against fucking Islam Makhachev. Talk about the balls on this guy. But he basically said, look, nobody wants to fight this guy. I'm going to fight this guy. And if I win, that's my title shot. Because he's basically saying they're trying to set Islam up for a title shot. Let me ask you this. What fight, if you had the choice of fights between Islam versus RDA and Islam versus Hooker, which one would you pick?
I think Hooker, just because we've seen RDA against really good wrestlers so much. I'm not saying Islam can't take down Dan Hooker and do that as well, because he probably can. Maybe he can. We'll see. But the book has been written on how to beat RDA, and we've seen it happen so many times at welterweight and 155 that Dan Hooker feels fresher. Dan Hooker hits with more power, I think. So Hooker has more of like a threat to knock out Makhachev. But yeah, and especially like let's ride the wave here. I think this hack press fight was really fun. I would love to see let's keep the momentum going with Hooker where he has this kind of build up to him. And I did see a ton of media members like praising Dan Hooker for being an absolute savage taking this fight. So yeah, let's ride the Hooker train.
Yeah, I agree, man. It's a lot of balls to take this fight. I guess he's going to be staying in the States until the fight. I think his coaching situation is going to be a little bit wonky, but yeah, what balls on Dan Hooker gets a big win and then honestly catapults on a big opportunity. If he beats Islam Makhachev, I don't think he's going to get a title shot, but man, he puts himself right in the mix for one.
He would certainly make some noise about it because they are for sure trying to
push
100%. Makhachev. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. The last big one on the card we need to talk about. Chris Dawkis gets a big win over Shamil Abdul Rachmanov. He looked really good. I mean, the guy kind of a little bit of a blubbery boy, but I mean, his footwork and his hands are just fucking nasty for heavyweight. And he's another guy that's pretty young. How old is Chris Dawkis? Maybe is he even 30 yet?
32.
32, yeah. So he's another guy that's pretty young for the heavyweight division. But he accepts the fight with Derek Lewis. I don't even know. Maybe in December or something. I should have that up. But
December 18th.
Yes. Another guy though, gets a big win and then wastes no time in taking a big fight. I actually like that fight for him. Derek did not look good in his last fight. Dawkis has fast enough hands where I think he can deal with Derek on the feet. Impressive stuff.
Yeah, and we'll probably talk about his brother who fights this weekend, but the Dawkis brothers coming to the UFC, I thought Chris was the weaker link, and apparently not, because he's doing really well at heavyweight. What is he now? 4-0 in the UFC, 4 finishes.
Dude, they both look good, man.
Yeah.
Both these guys look good. Anything else you want to hit on this UFC 266 card before we move on?
Let me see if there's anything. Whoops. I feel like there was. I mean, Jonathan Pierce, very first fight of the night. That's a huge win. Omar Morales is a guy that had been pretty high on, but I think Jonathan Pierce kind of coming out of nowhere. What is he now? So he has one loss in the UFC to Joe Lozon, but other than that, he's now 2-0. I think he's a guy that we should be keeping our eye on that has not had very much hype around him, but this win over Morales deserves a win. Deserves a
good win.
Yeah.
Jalen Turner was impressive getting out Euros Medic because I was big on Medic in this fight, and Jalen Turner did the thing, man.
Yeah.
Did the thing.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, let's move on to some fights that are coming up. It's actually Friday, and hopefully we get this out before the fight actually happens. But today, I believe it starts at 4 p.m. Eastern. Bellator 267 is happening, and it is main evented by Douglas Lima rematching MVP. We've been I don't want to say we've been MVP haters, but we've been very critical of MVP throughout his career because he's always been pushed as like this guy that is, I mean, Bellator calls him, the best welterweight in the world, and he just hasn't fought the type of competition we need to see him fight besides his one fight with Douglas Lima, which he got starched. MVP is now 30, what's he, like 35, 36 years old. So I think and it's sad because he's 34 years old, right? I think the sun is set on if we're ever going to find out if MVP is really one of the best fighters in the world, right? Because being 34, 35 years old at welterweight is not ideal, like it is at heavyweight. But he gets an opportunity to right the biggest wrong in his career against Douglas Lima. I think you were saying before this fight that Lima is actually a underdog currently, which is kind of crazy to me because listen, Douglas Lima in a striking battle, I mean, Douglas hasn't looked that good in his last couple fights, especially that last fight against Amasov, and even the fight against Musasi didn't look good. But again, those guys kind of took him down and grounded him for long periods of time, right? A fight that's going to be contested on the feet. I favor Lima pretty heavily, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, Lima's last 3 losses were against guys that took him down, and one of those was at 185 against Gegard Mousasi. So I truly don't get. I mean, he's a slight underdog, but I truly don't get the odds here. We've seen it play out, and I have no reason to believe that Lima cannot do the same thing. I mean, like these odds would make me think that, oh, maybe they fought like 5 or 6 years ago. No, they fought in 2019.
I know.
And I know people are like saying MVP was getting the better of Lima early in that fight. Maybe, but
He was.
Watch that fight. That was Lima though, just like accepting. Like that was a 5-round fight. Like Lima was making reads. And then that knockout, which is like the high, if people watch our YouTube, like that's the key like of our highlight to the opening of our podcast. So I've seen it a ton of times. That's MVP like telegraphing a punch and Lima like kicking his leg out and then sleeping him on the mat. I don't see how Lima does not do something similar again here. And I know we've been critical, like you said, of MVP, but that's because since losing to Douglas Lima, he's fought Richard Keeley, who was 3-0 at the time, Gianni Milio, don't know who that is, Shinzo Anzai, who was 9-3 in a UFC cast-off at that time, Ross Houston, who took the fight on short notice and gave MVP a shit ton of problems, and then Derek Anderson, who is a career lightweight and had no like game plan whatsoever going into that fight. I don't get it. I think Lima's gonna embarrass MVP this time in front of a hometown crowd.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Lima gets him out of there again. Now this is a 3-round fight, correct? I believe it is because it's it's a main event. Bellator doesn't do the 5-round main events.
Correct.
Yeah, I favor Lima here. I think Lima's going to be able to take out his legs. I think he's going to stay away from the flashy stuff. Lima's not a guy that's going to be drawn into like MVPs, like feints and shit like that. Yeah, I'm pretty big on Douglas Lima here.
Yeah, like I mean, not to get too in like simplified, but you said it right. Like it's gonna happen on the feet. Why would you expect Lima? Like his losses have come to wrestlers, people that can take him down.
The rest of the card is pretty thin. I really don't recognize too many names on it outside of like Rob Whiteford and Liam McCourt in the co-main event. Is there anyone else on there that you recognize that we should be keeping our eyes on, or should we move on?
I think we can. I mean, this is in London, so they're getting into their roster that has not been able to fight in a really long time. I think because of the pandemic.
Yeah, and the main event's going to carry the card, right? You're there for the main event.
Exactly.
Saturday night, UFC is back with a light heavyweight banger. Thiago Santos taking on Johnny Walker. Johnny Walker, wasn't that the guy that everyone said was going to beat John Jones a couple years ago? Oh wait. I mean, both these guys need a big win. I think Johnny Walker is. Let's see. He won his last fight. Oh, he knocked out Ryan Spann in his last fight. Previous to that, he had lost 2 in a row. Thiago Santos is desperately in need of a big win. He's lost 3 in a row to John Jones, Glover Teixeira, and Alexander Rakic. I would imagine this fight is going to be fucking bananas, but the last fight with Rakic I thought was going to be bananas, and correct me if I'm wrong, it was kind of a snooze fest, wasn't it, between Santos and Rakic?
Yeah, I think Santos got taken down a ton from what I recall.
Yeah. I would imagine this fight's going to be fucking bananas.
Or didn't pull the trigger, but Santos is that guy who will like get hurt and then just like unleash hell without really thinking. And I think if I have to pick a winner here, I feel like Santos maybe gets tagged with some weird spinning shit or something and then just goes bonkers and knocks out Johnny Walker. But who fucking knows? I do think that it could be bananas, but there is a possibility that it's also like boring and weird.
Yeah, I'm not.
5 rounds. 5 rounds is risky.
I don't know if I have a good read on this one.
I don't know.
I would lean Santos as well, and I think that it is going to be. Yeah, I'm gonna say it's gonna be a batshit crazy fight. This Santos fight. I think both their chins could be tagged, but I'm gonna say Walker's chin goes first. I'm gonna go like Santos by like second or third round KO after just madness.
Yeah, I'm with that. And I feel like I've never been high on Johnny Walker. I was never on that train.
Yeah, no. Again, both of these guys, I mean, this is not that relevant for the title picture. It's a very fun fight, but yeah, I'm gonna go Santos. The aforementioned Kyle Dawkis is in the co-main event, taking on Kevin Holland. Haven't seen Kevin Holland since he had that weird stretch of 2 fights where he just got absolutely just grounded, wrestled, talked a lot of shit while doing a lot of nothing. So this is a big fight for him. I think Kyle Dawkins would be smart to try to wrestle him because we've seen Kevin Holland able to get taken down. But Kyle's another guy with nice hands as well. I think this is a really, really solid matchmaking. Should be a fun fight.
Yeah, I think Dawkins will try to take. I mean, he has a good ground game, a good like Darce game. I think Dawkins will try to get this on the mat, but this is a good test for him, especially because Holland's obviously fought kind of the best of the best at middleweight. So if he can handle him, kind of the sky's the limit for Kyle Dawkins.
Agreed. Looking on the rest of this card, Aspen Ladd Macy Chiasson is rescheduled to this card. I'm really hoping that fight stays together because that's a big one in the women's bantamweight fight. Nico Price, Alex Oliveira should be crazy. Those guys have like 38 kids together, or they have like 38 kids between the two.
Not together yet.
No, not together. Not together.
That would be a huge fight. The UFC selling life partners on a card.
Who else? Beth Correa, biggest fighter on the card. This is her retirement fight, I believe. Fighting Carol Rosa. It's Jesus. They could have thrown her a little bit of a bone on the way out, but poor Beth.
She's like,
she's going out the race.
Yeah. I did prelim primer this week And yeah, see how Betch Correia wins that fight. And Carol Rosa is like minus 500. They gave her Betch Correia, who fucking got slaughtered by Ronda Rousey, just like because they need her to headline a pay-per-view. They're not doing her any favors.
No, they're not doing her any favors, man. But maybe maybe she'll do the booty shake if she wins. Who knows? Maybe she'll do it if she loses. Just just shake it on the way out.
Do what you need. Do what you need.
Do you? Anyone else on this card that you're excited about? Any other fights?
I will say, because I did the prelim primer, I think Jamie Malarkey against Devontae Smith is going to be an absolute banger. I think that's a really, really scrappy fight that would be worthwhile to tune in for if you're on the fence about watching the prelims. I think that fight, which right now according to Tapology is the fourth fight of the night, should be a total scrap. I think it'll be fun.
Casey O'Neill fighting Valentina Shevchenko too. Casey O'Neill's she looks really good in her young UFC career.
Yeah, really hot prospect that I think can keep the train going against Shevchenko probably.
Agreed. Did you get to see by the way, did you get to watch any of the Joshua Usyk fight this past weekend?
I watched all of the fight. However, I just watched it yesterday because I was spent so much. Back to the front of the show, I was like spent all the past few days getting caught up. But yeah, fight of the year for boxing contender. Like that fight was incredible. Alexander Usyk is incredible. Like I did not think that fight was going to happen how it did. The guy is a pretty phenomenal heavyweight. Like the pace he kept, Usyk that is, for 12 rounds was kind of blew me away.
Yeah, the pace, he's just like, he's hard to get a read on. Like he's always moving. He does like, he's got like those weird like jerky motions. He feints a lot. Joshua just could not get a hold of him. And Joshua is not like a good inside fighter, right? So he had to try to fight him on the outside. Just not. I mean, the thing that I gotta say, man, MMA has its own shit, but it seems like boxing is constantly corrupt, right? You always hear the shit about corruption. I'm glad that they actually got the winner right, and especially in England. I'm glad that it wasn't like Alexander Usyk clearly won the fight, but we're gonna give it to Joshua just because he's huge, he looks good, and it would be a bigger money fight with the winner of Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder.
Yeah, you always run that like. Does the person who actually won the fight, are they going to get the decision? You have that anxiety with big boxing matches, but dude, whether it's Fury or Wilder next, I am like the intrigue of that fight, because Usyk would then be fighting in Deontay Wilder, like the biggest puncher in the division, or I would love to see Usyk against Fury, not just because of the size difference, but both those guys are incredible movers for heavyweight. I think that would be like an absolute kind of technical marvel to see.
I think Joshua has a rematch clause, which could throw the wrench into it. But yeah, man, I'm excited for either of those fights. I believe, what is it, next weekend? I think is the the Wilder Fury fight. Maybe 2 weekends. I'm not totally positive, but that's coming up soon. So, again, heavyweight boxing, man. Heavyweight boxing is it's always big, right? Especially when it delivers like this.
Yeah, for sure. That was like, again, I watched it knowing the outcome, and I had heard that, oh, this fight's incredible, but it delivered 100%. If anybody has not seen that fight, it's worth your like 50 minutes or whatever to sit down and watch it. It's great.
Staying on boxing, Manny Pacquiao announces his seeming retirement. Manny Pacquiao just, had like a 20-something year career, 70 plus fights, won, I believe, 8 titles. The guy is a freaking legend, but one of the best boxers, I think, of the era, of a couple eras, because that guy was around forever. But man, bye to Manny Pacquiao. He says goodbye to boxing. I was always a big fan of Manny. So props to him on an amazing career.
Yeah, man, he'll be missed
of the sport,
and like one of the preeminent stars of the past like 20 years in boxing.
Yeah, he's in some of the biggest fights, man. He never shied away from a tough fight. The guy fought. Dude, I remember watching Manny Pacquiao. I watched this shit live with my dad way back there. I remember when he fought Marco Antonio Barrera in like one of his first just like big fights, and I was like mesmerized at this guy. Like that was when Manny was young too, just punches and bunches. He'd throw like 300 punches around. It was insane. The guy was a stud, man.
Yeah, will rightfully be remembered fondly.
Of course. So let's talk a couple couple of announced fights before we get out of here. Just get your gauge on them. I'm just gonna pick. Let's see. Dominic Cruz, Pedro Munoz.
I'm okay with it, but that's not the fight I wanted for Dom Cruz. I think you and I both wanted the Aldo fight, right?
The Aldo fight. Yes. Speaking of Aldo versus Rob Font.
Banger, of course. I'm a little bit more into that fight than the one you just mentioned, but again, I'd rather see Aldo fight Cruz. But that's an absolute banger. Huge opportunity for Rob Font, which I'm happy to see him get. He's been a guy like taking hard fights kind of endlessly in the UFC and always kind of around there. So love it for him. But that should absolutely deliver on the feet. I'm excited for that one.
Sandhagen Jan.
Love it. That's going to be fucking awesome. That's going to be awesome. Guessing Corey Sandhagen's praises enough. And I think hopefully Peter Yan will come out there with something to prove. Like, no, I'm actually the motherfucking champion. And he'll have, I mean, he has something to be motivated about now. So love that. That's an absolute banger.
That is an absolute banger. Rolling and Paiva, Sean O'Malley.
Oh, yeah. I mean, what are you going to do with Sean O'Malley?
Dominic Cruz would have been a good one too.
Dude, this is a very losable fight for Sean O'Malley. It makes me think that because let me look up Paiva here.
Paiva looked really good this last fight.
Yeah, he beat Kyler Phillips. I forgot who is a certified stud in his own right. I feel like they're trying to give Sean O'Malley like continually like these kind of lesser thought of fighters, but Paiva can grapple, Paiva can wrestle, Paiva can leg kick, which is kind of all you need against Sean O'Malley sometimes. So I don't know, man. This feels like a very, very risky fight for O'Malley, but hey, man, do what you want to do.
I know. Do we miss any other big ones that got announced? I'm trying to look. We talked about Hooker Makachev. Oh, I think probably the biggest one of them all, Derek Brunson, Jared Cannonier.
Okay, yeah, for number one, that's got to be obviously number one
contender for sure.
And what happened to Brunson saying he wanted to wait? He didn't really play much hardball, did he?
No, I mean they probably offered him, well, probably guaranteeing him a title shot after this, and I think it makes sense because Adesanya and Whitaker is probably going to happen in maybe January. So yeah, I think this makes all the sense in the world, man. I really like the fight.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there was kind of no way around that fight happening unless Brunson just said no, I have to hold out for a title shot, because we know Cannonier wasn't going to. He told us all.
Yeah, he said he wants to fight, so let him fight. This is great matchmaking.
Right.
The last thing before we get out of here, John Jones arrested again. Did you see the details on the arrest?
Yeah, unfortunately, I did. I read the entire arrest report, police report. Super, super troubling stuff, dude. Like, I don't know what they should do. The guy obviously needs help. Like, dude, I'm one of the biggest John Jones fans out there, and I'm at the point where it's like, should they straight up cut him? Like, just let him go? And I know like they can cut him and let him go, and he can go fight in Bellator or wherever the fuck he wants, because everybody's gonna want to sign the guy. And I don't know if that's the right thing, but like, dude, it's just over and over and over. And this is another one where he's like, he's seemingly putting his hands on his girlfriend or wife or fiance, or I don't know the details on what she is, but like apparently like his kids were involved and it's not a good look, man. It's not a good look. It's awful, man. And like you and I are John Jones like fans, in that
yes,
we love to see him fight, obviously, but we are not John Jones apologists. We're not gonna like excuse his behavior, and yeah, like, what are the consequences for this guy? Like,
there should be.
And we forget that like at the beginning of the pandemic, didn't he have like a DUI or some shit? Like right when the quarantine started, he had like guns in his car.
Yep.
There's got to be some consequences, and especially to this one. Like, DUIs can kill people. That's awful in its own right. Doing shit like that, like wrecking his car, that shit is dangerous. That hitting a pregnant woman, all dangerous. Those acts should have had consequences. This one is pretty that arrest report, and it is hard to read.
Yeah, it's hard to read.
And I'm like, I'm not going to pretend to be some expert on domestic violence, but that police report reads like that is far and away not the first time that's happened, because his fiance is basically trying to tell the police, no, it's okay. Like, and there's fucking blood all over her shirt. Apparently there was blood all over the hotel room. I think the UFC should not cut him so he can't fight somewhere else, but also like suspend him and get him some fucking, like, put him in some mandatory counselings, get him some fucking help, because something is not right with him. And it's like, yeah, there has to be like major consequences, and maybe the law will finally step in and he'll actually have some real like legal consequences.
I would hope so. Yeah.
But yeah,
I would
it's
hope
just
so.
frustrating. He just feels like a guy. And again, like, he's a human being. I have empathy for him. I don't think he wants to do this, probably. And I think he's probably is dealing with his own traumas. Like, not to get too deep, but like, I have empathy for him. I don't think he deserves to be like locked away, throw away the key, that kind of shit. But something has to change, because he's a danger to the people around him. He's a danger to his kids. And I would be kind of sickened if the UFC like puts him back in the limelight without something really serious happening before that.
Yeah, something needs to happen. And again, like, we've been clamoring for this Francis Ngannou fight, but now it's like, I don't want to see it, man. I want to see John get the help that he needs.
Yeah.
I don't even want to, dude. I don't even want to think about John Jones fighting anytime soon, man. And that's coming from some John Jones fans. But this is bad, man. He needs help. And I hope he gets it. Like you said, yeah, he needs to be suspended or something. Like he needs to just take the time to get himself right. But we've been saying this for years, right? I mean, dude, his rap sheet is almost as long as his fucking title defense record.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's and like
the John Jones 30 for 30 one day is going to be wild.
Yeah, I mean, for his sake, man, I hope he kind of has a rebirth. I hope he legitimately does. Maybe he spends some time in jail. Maybe he doesn't fight for 2.5 years. For his sake, I hope he does like change as a person, get the counseling, the help, whatever he needs, and rebounds from this. But that said, like, again, I can't stress it enough. This is, and I know, innocent until proven guilty. If people want to come at me with that, like, read that arrest report and tell me that you think he's in any way innocent. I don't care if he was blackout drunk. His kids were asking to call the cops, and he like clearly abused his fiance to the point that she was bleeding all over the place. Horrible, horrible shit.
I've been blackout drunk too, man. I've never hit
Yeah,
or headbutted a fucking police car. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's a shame because it was on such a night that was supposed to be like glorious for him, right? Like, he's entering the Hall of Fame with Gustafsson, which was one of the best title fights ever. And he just fucking can't keep it under control, man. It sucks.
Yeah. I hope, a lot of people in the MMA community rightfully are really angry with him and they shit on him. But again, like, I have empathy for the guy. I hope he gets help. I hope
Me too, yeah, of course.
Gets better. I hope maybe they end that relationship because it might not be healthy, right? I hope his kids, everything gets better, but clearly things are not good for him right now.
No, they're not. And it's a shame because John is one of the greatest, if not the greatest fighters ever, but he can't keep it together outside of the cage, and it's a shame to see.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, man. So we should have done that earlier. We should have ended on some good note.
I'm trying to think if there's any like silly news out there that we should we can end on asking for a title shot against Alexander Volkanovsky, which is like so fucking ridiculous.
Who asked for a title shot?
Henry Cejudo, who's not even who's not even in the USADA pool right now. Like, Henry Cejudo can't even return to the UFC if within like the next
6 months or a year, right? He would have to get
like,
back for a while. Yeah.
However, Volkanovski would probably beat the shit out of him, so I would be okay with that.
Yeah, I would be okay with that as well. All right, man. That's it. I think we hit it all. Enjoy the fights this weekend. Please hit us with a follow and a subscribe wherever you listen to the podcast. Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, SoundCloud. We're all over the place.
No escape, can you step to this? Face the pain.